I want you to think very, very carefully of these three things. But just have a look at this before you think of those three things. When you talk of recovery, just look at this diagram. Because I know that many people are in a hurry for the economy to recover. I am as well. I am. But what this is showing is that, look, this is the Nigerian economy on the floor. It was already on the floor. There was already someone holding the Nigerian economy to the floor. I mean, the economy was not standing. It was on the ground. Then, the person holding the Nigerian economy to the floor is saying, come and join me. Come and take over. Three questions you must ask yourself. What were the pre-shock conditions? Because if you talk in terms of recovery, and let me use another example. It's similar to the cartoon I just shared, but let me use another example. In 2014, I traveled to Spain, and I had to be brought back on a wheelchair. I had pneumonia. Never had pneumonia. That was the first time. I'm sure if it was last year, they would just say it's COVID. But never had pneumonia, first time. But I have never in my life experienced that kind of sickness before. Just imagine my size. Within the space of 5 days, I lost 40% of my weight. Within the space of 5 days. So if someone had hit me at that point, I probably would have just died. But if you hit me today, no matter how powerful you are, I may just, and just stagger up. So that is what we mean by pre-shock conditions. So many people and some government people, especially because they saw 5% in the last quarter, they say, oh, we are now recording 5%. No. The 5% is from the lowest of the lowest economic base. So when you are thinking recovery in Nigeria, just imagine the pre-shock conditions. How does this help or not? Second, what happens to oil price? Third, what happens to the greater level of uncertainties that have emerged? Because there are some things that were predictable before COVID, and most of those things are not predictable anymore. They will have implications for when the economy recovers. So let's look at the number one pre-shock conditions. I told you the economy was already on the ground. So I decided to show you data from 2008 so that you understand very, very well. In the last 12 years, Nigeria has experienced 3 economic declines. Can you notice it there? Can you notice the 3 economic declines there? No, you can only notice 2. Why? Because the first economic decline of the 2009 was actually when Nigeria was very, very, very healthy. So we did not even notice it by the time it came and it left. By the time oil prices recovered in 2010, we had forgotten that almost 1 year. And I remember at that time, I actually was at the World Bank annual meeting in Turkey, 2009, and the then Minister of Finance, Mukhtar, I don't know how many of you remember him at the time. He didn't know I was a journalist, and he was talking to the Director of Budget. And before they realized I was a journalist, I already heard what they said. They said, oh, look, when you get back to the house, when we get back home, please find they're releasing $2 billion US. Just like that. They were releasing $2 billion US into the Nigerian economy for 1 or 2 of them. But by the time 2020 came, you can't even release $500 million US. So that's the impact of pre-shock conditions. So if you actually look at it, if you actually look at that 2008, 2009, you will notice, you will see that there was actually a slowdown from 6% to 5% in 2009. That's this. Then we recovered again in 2010. However, By the time the economic recession came in 2016, that was the second major economic decline in less than 10 years. Less than 10 years. This time it was significant. Now, I would only like to speak to the data, but it's also very, very important that when you speak to the data, you also say some very, very important things, especially based on the training that I have. The 2016-2017 recession was not necessary. The 2020, no one could do anything about it. But the 2016, I don't care who the Minister of Finance was, I don't care who was, it was not necessary. It was the management of the economy that was bungled. Because you can't be coming from 5%, 4%, and you are seeing your economy and you didn't know what to do. You just allowed it. Then when you came out of recession, you say, we came out of recessions. So, but the 2020, no one could do anything about 2020. It was just going to happen, pre-shock conditions. But the point is that because that 2016 and 2017 happened, it made 2020 worse. Pre-shock conditions, poverty. When we talk economics, and I always try to explain this, economics is probably the easiest subject to understand. Don't think too much about economics as a macro, just think of your own personal situation. So the rich, the whole of last year, were prepared to stay at home, but the poor were not. Why? Because the rich had cushion. It's not because they were better behaved, it's just because there was cushion. So what does that mean? It means that in the global economy, the rich countries also were prepared to stay at home because there was cushion. But the poor country could not afford, not because we did not want to stay at home, but we could not afford. And let me tell you why. So look at these poverty figures. Just look at 1985, 1992, 1996, 2003, 2009, and 2018. Now, let me tell you what this poverty figure is showing. The blue is $1.90 a day. A day. The red, that's you are graduating, you are graduating poverty. So the red is what? $3.20 a day. The green is $5.50 a day. Of course, the green, that is 92%, they also contain the blue and the red, right? Okay, I'm going somewhere. Now, by the time COVID-19 came, let's say we assume that this is also the figure that we had in 2020. By the time COVID-19 came, most of those in red were at the border of extreme poverty. Immediately 2020 came, they entered. So our pre-shock conditions were very, very bad. It means that the impact, of course, of COVID-19 was worse than ever. And this has implications for recovery. Those were in percentages. These are just the actual numbers. These are the actual numbers. We don't need to go through over it again. So you have 76 million people. So I wonder how many of us are now living in extreme poverty.